Hey everyone, it's Charlie Morgan here, and on the whiteboard today, we're going to talk about two groups of people and why certain people make it and certain people don't. And so right now in this make money online space, there's a lot of people, and let's just call them you. People like you who are trying to figure it out, trying to make some money and make a success of themselves. And then over here, on the other side of the equation, there's people who we will call the gurus. Okay, so this is people like me, although I hate to self-identify as a guru. Oh, it's not a nice idea, is it? But you know what I'm talking about, people that have made it. And so what we have is a lot of these people and very few of these people. And what happens is these people, i.e. you, spend a lot of your time watching the gurus, i.e. me, trying to learn what separated me or any other guru from yourself. So maybe you watch Brez Scales or Iman Gaji or any other, online guru that's made some money. Now, I'm 27 years old and I'm a multi-millionaire quite a few times over. And that's a very abnormal life to live, okay? As far as, and I'm not saying this with any egotistical pride, as far as income is concerned, I'm in the top 0.0000000 probably 1% of my age bracket for net worth and income. And that means that there's something very weird going on here because I belong here. Because here's the first lesson I want to tell you today is that the people over here, the gurus, the people that you see on the internet, selling courses, buying Lamborghinis, buying watches and flexing their lifestyle, let me tell you something about us. We are normal people. We still have emotional struggles. We still go to the bathroom. We still have family dramas. We still fall out with friends. We still, like everything that happens to you on a personal level happens to us on a personal level as well. And just because we have money, and just because we have status, and just because we have some level of commercial competence that gives assent to financial gain, doesn't separate us. Now, the thing is about this is that there is actually really one, maybe two, probably three things that I'm going to talk about in this video. And the reason I'm saying probably is because I actually haven't thought this through yet. I'm just rolling off the cuff here because I've got this idea in my head that I need to sort of flesh out, almost like a journal. So you're coming on this journey with me, and I'm going to explain what I think is the primary reason that so many people get stuck here and so few people make it to here. And as someone who's actually bridged this gap, I can explain this because when I was 18, 19, even 20, I was successful at 20. I was a millionaire by 21, basically. But when I was like 17, 18, 19, when I was trying to figure things out and make it, I was like a real loser. I didn't have any idea what I was doing. I wasn't smart. I wasn't particularly intelligent. I didn't have much of a work ethic. And well, to be fair, that's actually a lie. I had quite a work ethic. But, I was just a normal dude. Just driving a Vauxhall Corsa around the countryside in the UK, going to parties, going to the gym and just doing an apprenticeship and working in a bar and just trying to had a normal life. Fast forward 10 years and now I have financial control for the rest of my life and I'm financially sorted forever and probably will go on to be a billionaire. That's my goal, right? Hopefully I get there, but we'll see. I will. I'm just trying to have some fake humility. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, how do we do this? How the hell do you go from being normal to being abnormal in a way that is desirable? Well, I think I figured it out because I was reflecting on this earlier. Because look, I've got friends who are still where they were when I began my entrepreneurial journey. And so, what this means is when I was 18 years old, I started, and this is me, right over here. And then I've got friends who were 18 years old as well. And we were friends at the time being 18. And, fast forward by, really 9 years, nearly 10 years here, like a decade, I'm now at the point where I've got these millions and they're still, they have the same level of financial income that they had when they were 18. Either still working the same jobs, or maybe they've got like a decent job, but they're still they consider themselves to be broke. And that's not for lack of trying. A lot of people that I know, who, not necessarily people in my immediate circle, but people that I know from back then, they've tried to do the business thing, they've tried to do the sort of entrepreneur thing, but it didn't work. So what the hell? How can I be any different from these people? And how can Iman Gaji or Alex Hormozi or any of these people, like, look, let me tell you some truth. Internet gurus, whether you want to call yourself a guru or not, if you're someone that makes videos about how to make money and how to become successful, you are by virtue and nature a guru. What we like to do is we like to deify ourselves. And what that means is we like to make ourselves appear to be more than human. Deification means to turn someone into a god. This is what ancient Egyptian pharaohs tried to do. And this is one of the reasons why the Egyptian dynasty line continued for something like 33 dynasties or something crazy like that. They made people think they were God. And that's a pretty cool skill to have. Because when you're an internet marketer and you can convince your audience that you are more than human in some sort of way, and you become deified in this space, then what starts to happen is people start to treat you differently, people start to buy from you, and they really start to worship you, almost like you'd worship a god. And if you don't believe me, go to one of your favorite gurus' social pages and start leaving nasty comments and watch yourself get attacked by the worshippers. So, you know, the problem with this is when you look at the gurus, and whether that's myself or anyone, you think that we're different. We're not. What we just did is figure out how to do something that you don't know how to do. That's it. All we did was figure out how to solve a few set of problems. So, oh, I'm gonna kick my, see, I'm so normal, I can't even make a proper YouTube video without kicking my camera. So, okay, let's get into the sort of meat of this, shall we? So, the first rule, there's two components to this, to actually going from being a normal person to a successful person. The first thing, and this is gonna sound so trivial, is never quit. Here's the thing. Becoming successful and making a ton of money takes a lot of time. And what you need to learn to do is iterate your behavior and your decisions and your belief systems over time. And so becoming successful is basically about, and I'm going to just draw this, is about being on a trajectory. So up here is the achievement of your goal, and here is now. And so you want to go from where you are to where you want to be. And what you basically need to learn to do is adjust, you know, this little arrow here, it represents your behavior. And so what you need to understand is that your goal, or what you want, i.e. financial freedom, in order for you to achieve it, all you have to do is behave in a certain way. Because it's not about you and it's not about anyone, it's about your behavior. And this is a really hard abstraction to explain, but the point I'm making is that if I can do it, then anyone can. It's not that I've got some godlike special latent ability, although perhaps I was born with more of a proclivity towards being able to articulate myself or persuade people or whatever, be more extroverted on camera. But those are just little psychological nuances. If I can do it, then you can. And all of these other entrepreneurs that you see that are crushing it and making millions of dollars and buying all these things, all you need to learn to do is behave how they behave behind the scenes. And so this is where we get this massive discrepancy, is what you do is you watch these gurus and you watch these successful people and you try and deduce their behavior and you try and like assimilate their decision-making patterns through the image that they're portraying online. And that's okay to a degree, but you're not going to make millions of dollars by doing vlogs in Bali or going and spending money on a penthouse in Dubai. Those aren't the decisions that enable the entrepreneurs to become successful. What you need to do is see the decisions behind the decisions to make the decisions. Does that make sense? So when you look at someone online and you see someone building a massive personal brand or doing a launch, and you think, God, I need to build a massive personal brand or do a launch. It's like, no. That's the decision that entrepreneur is making at this point in their entrepreneurial career. But what you haven't seen is the decades of decisions they've made before to get to that point. And so this is why we see this massive issue with this personal branding thing. And it's why we see a massive issue with people just not being successful, because they're paying too much attention to what the gurus are doing now, as opposed to what they did when they started at your point. And so I actually named this a while ago because I saw this happen to my audience. It's called action brackets. So the decisions that you make and the actions that you take should only be considered relevant to the situation that you're in. So for example, in my business right now, I haven't taken a sales call for 2 to 3 years. My entire day is spent on building products and making content. And so when I say that, what some people do is they look at my videos and think, oh, okay, I need to outsource sales as soon as possible, and then I need to just focus on my product. And it's like, no, the reason I'm doing that now is because it's appropriate for me to do that now, and that's the action and mode of behavior that gives a sense of the goal I've got, which is to get to 3 million a month. You're not trying to get to 3 million a month, you're just trying to get to 10K a month. And so instead what you'd need to do is look at the decisions, or try to deduce the decisions and actions that I took at that point. And what did I do? I did sales all day, every day. That was all I did. And so it's about manipulating your decisions and behavior relevant to the position in which you're in now. And the problem is that all the gurus that you see aren't at the point, like they're not just a little bit further ahead than you. Because when it comes to asymmetric attentive accumulation, what happens is the people that have the most get the most attention. So the people that flex the most, have the biggest results. There's a reason why Hormozi's brand is huge. It's mainly because, well, first of all, it's because he's actually very good at making videos and he's ruthless when it comes to personal branding. But second to that, he has one of the most extreme personal achievement claims going, which is, I've made $100 million. And you can't compete with that on his level if you can't say that, because ultimately the attention, the hierarchy of attention it's a hierarchy towards the person who's most competent. And so, you can display your competence through your achievements or through your expenses. And so another example of this is Iman Gaji, obviously a talented entrepreneur in his own right, but Iman's strategy for, capturing attention, in the most part, at least in the early days of his brand, up until really recently, has been to flex, and has been, the villa and the cars and the collections and the watches and the holidays and the girls. And, that is a display of, hey, I'm competent enough to buy these things, so you should listen to me. And then what people do is they look at what Hormozi's doing, or they look at what Iman's doing, and they think that that's what they should be doing to achieve their goals, when in reality, that is what they should be doing to achieve their goals probably 5 years from now. So anyway, you might be wondering why I wrote this down and then went off on a tangent, because the thing is a lot of people are quitters. And the number one rule to actually making it is never to quit. But that's not enough. Because there's plenty of people that have been in business for plenty of time that still haven't made it yet. I mean, look at yourself. I don't know how long you've been trying to make this work for. Maybe you've been going for a couple of years and you still haven't made any progress. But what you need to do is you need to pair rule number 1 with rule number 2, which is feedback. So what you need to learn is that if you always do what you have done, then you will always get what you have got. And this is the same line of, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. But the sad truth is that what most people do is they try to become successful and they get jammed and stuck on one specific route. And so we'll come back to these points in a second. But let me give you a visual to explain how this works. So think of it like this, right? So here you are, represented by this stick man. And what I want you to imagine is that up here is your goal and what you want to achieve. Okay? And to get to this goal, let's just draw this and this. Okay? A series of lines. So let's say that your goal is to make 10K per month. You can see that there, 10K a month. And there are, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's say there's 10 different things here. Here's where people go wrong. Is what they do is they recognize the divergence of entrepreneurship. And what that basically means, divergence is there's lots of different ways to achieve your goal. There are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs in the space who've got 10K a month. It's obvious, right? There's thousands of people that have done this with SMMA, AI agency, people that have done it with e-com, people that have done it with drop shipping, Amazon FBA, like real estate management. There's 101 ways to get to 10K a month. And so what you do in your entrepreneurial journey is you go and you pick let's say a door, right? Like this. So you go and you pick a door. And the problem that you're going to face is not every door is going to be best suited to you. And this is really, really, really important. So let's say, for example, that you are like absolutely, and this is the thing, it's like you can always change yourself and you should endeavor to change yourself to suit yourself to your business. But there are easier routes to go about this. So what I would do if I wanted to get to 10K a month is fan out all of the options available to me, every business model available to me, and then look at myself and try and pick the business model that is proven to do 10K a month or whatever the goal is, that is best suited to my current psychological makeup. And here's the thing, you're going to have to change your psychological makeup and you're going to have to alter your belief systems and your current identity to facilitate business growth. There's no way around that. But what a lot of people do is they listen to a guru and they see the guru's Lamborghini, and then what they do is they go and buy the guru's course, and then they get jammed on this door. And so what happens is, it's like if you're, let's say that you're like really introverted. Let's say you can't even form a sentence in front of someone, and you decide that the route you want to go to 10K a month is high ticket sales. It's like, well, that's probably not going to work out for you. Or maybe it will, but just nowhere near as quickly than if you went down, like, let's say number 9, which could be Amazon FBA or some e-commerce thing, or like a copywriting, being like a copywriting contractor or something, right? So the first rule that separates the gurus from the normal people is the mechanism that they chose, the door that they chose to walk through to achieve the goal was best suited to them. And I got quite lucky here and quite fortunate, because my personality type, my character, my identity, from the get-go was incredibly suited towards SMMA. And my first business that I got to 10K a month and 100K a month respectively was SMMA. And I had although I sucked at sales from a technical standpoint and from in the beginning I wasn't very good at selling and I wasn't very competent in terms of knowing what to say, but I had something that in the UK we call the gift of the gab, which is the ability to talk confidently even when you're just basically chatting shit. And so I've always been incredibly good at communicating and articulating myself and convincing people to do things in a way that makes them think it's their idea. And I've been able to do that since I was a kid. And here's the thing, is everyone's born with something. Like for example, like my younger brother is incredibly intuitive, and he's a lot more quiet than me, and he's a lot less outgoing, a lot less outspoken. And he's a lot better at listening, and he's a lot better at sort of like being sort of a little bit quieter and knowing how to reading people and not getting emotionally involved in conversations. Like, he's incredibly good at that. And so, everyone has their own temperament. And so I got lucky because I picked the door, like number 4 of SMMA, which required me to be incredibly good at sales. And then I got even luckier than that because I've always been weak from an analytical standpoint. So I'm not the best at, I got a lot better at this actually since I started, but at the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, I wasn't very good at like the technical side of things, like doing the Facebook ads and building the funnels and reading the analytics and like building these little intricate systems. And then I met my business partner, Bo, who really hated sales, but really loved the analytical stuff. And so basically myself and my business partner, we were both in the same door, and we had these pre-programmed complementary skill sets that we both used together to smash the goal. And that's how I became a millionaire after starting in like 3 years. We got to like 100K a month, like so fast. And that's what happens when the business model is suited to your initial conditions of psychological competence, right? It's kind of like how you're probably going to be better at basketball if you're born 6'7". It's just like a natural, it's a strength that you can build off of. So that's the first thing, is pick the right door. Like, pick the one that feels most appropriate to you, because I can tell you that if you're horrifically introverted and the idea of making content makes you want to gouge your eyes out, then it's probably best for you to not go into a business model that forces you to make content all the time. You can try, and trust me when I say that there are going to be things about yourself that you're going to have to change no matter what you do. And I've changed a lot about myself to suit myself to the business and such. But this is a really good place to start. Is just think am I actually in the right model here, the right vehicle? Like, does this actually suit my strengths, and kind of do my weaknesses are they not like too prevalent here, if that makes sense? So that's the first thing. But interestingly enough, like, what happens to people is they get kind of married to their business model. And so what happens is if you've been in the same thing for 2 years and you're still not making progress, then something's really wrong. Because it's like your mechanism for success is kind of like jammed, if that makes sense. And that's really not a good thing. If you've been doing the same thing, like in the same business model, in the same niche, selling the same thing, first of all, the reason most people don't make it is because they quit. And I don't mean that they quit, because there's quitting comes under 2 different things. You either quit or you switch. This is when you hop business model too soon. It's when you chop and change between a niche. You're like, one day I'm going to sell this product, now I'm going to learn this skill, and now I'm going to do a podcast, now I'm going to do it. And it's like you've got to stop switching around and getting shiny object syndrome. You've got to figure out who you are and what your strengths are, pick the business model most appropriate to that, and then stick to it. So the first reason people don't make it, and the first reason the gurus break through, is because gurus, we have what you would call stickability, which means we have the ability to stick to something and not get shiny, like grass is greener syndrome. For example, one thing that was amazing for me recently was the whole AI agency wave. So I've built my business around helping marketing agency owners, coaches and consultants systemize client acquisition. And because of that, I had lots of competition because it's quite a shiny thing. And we still help marketing agency owners, coach consultants systemize client acquisition. And what happened about maybe 6 to 9 months ago, maybe a year ago, or probably a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, is we had this big rise of AI automation agencies, the AAA business model coming to fruition. And what happened is all of my competitors, at least honestly 80% of them, they shiny object syndromed into that niche. And that left me, and I think maybe one other person, but I don't even think so anymore, in this niche. And so this is kind of why you don't want to switch, because everyone switches, and if you just stick to one thing, and I guarantee that what will happen after a while is the AAA thing will sort of slowly die out a little bit, and then consulting and AI consulting or marketing will come back into the craze, and it will become this thing again in a couple of years maybe, and then everyone who went to the automation thing will switch back to the SMMA thing again. And they'll come back, but by that point I'll own the space. In fact, we kind of already do, because there's nobody else to own it, because they've all switched out, or they've all gone somewhere else, or to some other shiny object. So that's the first rule, is just never quit. And I don't just mean quit in terms of quitting your need for a goal, because that's awful. That means you're going to resent yourself for the rest of your life. I'm talking about don't switch. Stick to it, no matter, and there will be 1,000,001 problems, and there will be 1,000,001 things that you can switch to that will seem better in the short term. It's like, oh, I can't get this right. You've got to stick with the problem. You have to. Because if you can stick with the problem, then you'll make it past the point that no one else can go past, because it's so painful to stick with that problem. And this is crucial. So the rule is don't switch. And the way you don't switch is by tanking out as much pain as possible. So what's going to happen, and this happens to people in relationships, right? So look at some people's relationships. What they do is they try and get into relationships, and then they find something wrong with someone, and then they dump them, and then they switch to someone else, and then after a short while, they find something wrong with that person. And it's like you never form a deep connection with any individual, and therefore yourself, because you're constantly chopping and changing from partner to partner to partner to partner. And that way you can never build a long-term relationship. You can never learn yourself, and you can never actually understand how to engage in proper, deep, intimate connection. And therefore never get married, have kids, etc. And what will happen eventually is if you keep chopping and changing, then you get to a point in terms of your biology where you just want to have kids and stuff, and then you end up with the wrong partner, or picking the wrong person, or going haywire and going all crazy. And it's the same thing is true with business niches and business models, is just don't switch. And so once you have that in your head, and once you get that through your skull, it's kind of what you need to think is I'm married to this business. I'm married, in the same way that if you marry a person, you make a vow that no matter what, you're not going to break up with them, right? It's kind of the ultimate commitment. And so once you have effectively made the decision to marry this business, and you're stuck with it for the rest, not necessarily the rest of your life, but until you move on to something bigger, which is going to take you a decade, and trust me, because I'm doing that right now, it's now you're in it, and you've made this you need to make a proper commitment to that business, to stick to it no matter what, how hard the problem is to solve that you're facing, no matter what bottlenecks you face, no matter what industry changes, you're stuck. with that thing. Now, are there going to be times where you have to switch? Yes. For example, I used to work with gyms, and I was doing 100K a month with a gym marketing agency, and then we had COVID come along, and the entire of the USA shut down. That was like a canon event. Like, that's like a black swan event, like a pandemic. Just suddenly everyone in your niche can't buy for 12 months. So then I switched from gyms to marketing agencies because they were businesses that were still open. So it's still appropriate to switch if there's a fucking pandemic or a world war or something deeply tragic that has just massively affected your entire industry, okay? So you're pretty much stuck with it unless, in the same way that like if you were married to someone and you're married to them and then like 10 years into the marriage, they become like evil and you realize that they've developed a tendency to want to be a serial killer and now they're a serial killer. It's probably excusable in the eyes of everything holy that you leave that person. I don't actually know the rules. I don't know if that is true or not, but you get my point, right? It's kind of like people like get into marriages and then after like 20 years someone becomes really abusive or they get schizophrenia or all sorts of problems, and there are times where you're like, okay, I've got to quit. But that's probably not going to happen, so you're going to stay. So what this basically means is the next thing is feedback and iteration. And so what you start doing, when you become fully, wholly committed to a business or a business model or a niche, instead of looking at it as this chaotic, like when you actually take like a 10-year time horizon on your business and you actually start thinking, I'm going to be doing this for at least the next decade, what that does is it calms you down and it calms your mind significantly because now you know you're in it for the long term. And so what you start doing, instead of looking for ways out, you look for ways in. And the easiest way in, i.e. the easiest way like through this problem and stuff like that, is to receive feedback and iterate accordingly. And so what this basically looks like from a scientific perspective, and then I'll make this business in a second for you, is you want to start seeing all of the aspects of your business as experiments. And what this basically looks like is you have a series of variables in different parts of your company, right? So you have like variable 1, you have variable 2, and variable 3. And what you do is you put these together to get, well, really it's an outcome, okay? And so what you start doing, and this is a really powerful way to think because it's called the scientific method, is you can start isolating your business as variables. So for example, I'll give you a perfect example. In my business, I have the variable of appointments, I have the variable of sales, and I have the variable of results. And really, if you're running one of these sort of high-ticket online B2B businesses, this is always going to be your instance. In the same way that if you're running an e-commerce business, then your variables are traffic, conversion, and delivery of product, right? Or fulfillment, right? And so generally speaking, most businesses are remarkably simple. Now, of course, you've got other variables like financial management and operations and team building and all these other things. But really at the core, first principle of any of these sort of traffic-based businesses, which is pretty much any business, you have how do you get eyeballs, how do you convert those eyeballs to buy your product, and how do you actually make sure that product is delivered and functioning properly. And so what you can start to do is you can start to realize that the combination of these three variables gives a set, it is the business, right? And the better these three variables are, the better the business will be. And so, what starts to happen is, let's say that, so what this is, okay? So let's say that this is traffic, this is conversions, and this is delivery, okay? So getting people in, getting them to buy, giving them the product, or making sure the product's good. And it's like, at the beginning, when you start your business, let's bring this a little closer, you have version 1, and version 1. And so what this means is you have your first version of how you're getting traffic, you have your first version of how you're getting conversions, and you have your first version of how you're delivering your product, i.e. your fulfillment, right? And what this does is this gives you version 1 of your business. The problem is that version 1 almost always sucks. In fact, version 1, version 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 usually aren't that great. And so what you need to start learning to do is realizing that the amount of money, so let's say that you're making $0 per month right now. Well, what's happening is this is an effect, is an outcome. And all this is reflective of is the quality of variables that you have in place. And the combination of those together, the confluence of those variables put together gives you this money. And so when you look at my business, for example, like we routinely make 800, 900K a month, right? Cash. Not always, but we're there, nearly there consistently. And the reason that's happening is because I've been iterating on my traffic sources for 5 years, 4 years. And so I probably have traffic like version like 97. I've also got a sales process that's been iterated on God knows how many times. So I've got version like 103 of my sales conversion, and my product I've probably worked on like 278 times or something. And so what I'm looking at here is I've got 97 iterations on my traffic. I've got 100, this, by the way, these are abstractions. These aren't actually specifically how many iterations I've made, but I'm just making a point. I've got 97 iterations on my traffic, 103 on my conversions, and like 200 plus on my product, which means that I've changed the way that I get traffic. I've changed the way I make YouTube videos, changed the way I make ads. I've changed my funnels, my offers, my products, my positionings nearly 100 times. I've changed the sales script 100 times, and I've changed my product more than 200. I've worked on this product for like 3 years, right? And so what you do is, what this means is I have like version X. I don't actually know, because what you'd need to do is take 97 times 103 times 200, that's going to be a big number, right? So it's version 1,000,000 or something, because I've made 1,000,000 iterations on my business. That's kind of how this works. And that version of my business gives ascent to 8 figures. Okay, i.e. me making something approximating $10 million a year and making a ton of money and being really rich. And so what you need to learn to do is understand that building a business is a methodical experiment. All you're trying to do is shuffle variables and introduce tests and be logical and rational in your deduction of the results of those tests, and using feedback from the tests to inform new variables. So for example, my sales manager, who iterates on our conversion process, will experiment with different sales techniques. And when he finds sales techniques that work, i.e. increased conversion rates, increased cash collection, increased retention, that will be added to our sales process. And this thing's constantly being experimented on. Because the only way that you grow a business and make more money is by either getting more traffic, by increasing your conversions, or by improving your delivery. And the other way you can increase this is obviously by, what also happens down here is you get like your retention thing, which is like getting people to buy on repeat, increasing lifetime value and such. And so there's more variables than meets the eye here, but really it is about this, right? And also as well, like you've got your profit variables and all these things. But when you look at people like yourself who don't get it, and you look at gurus like me who get it, the thing that we get how to do is, first of all, to never quit and actually marry the business in essence, and never switch, and never ever switch. But second of all, the second thing is this is the thing, is you can only do the experiments when you feel like you have the long-term permission to do so. Because all we're doing, the only thing that we get that you don't, is how to be scientific, and how to run experiments, and how to gently, slightly, every day improve the business by 0.0001%. All you're trying to do, this is kind of the lesson here, is every day, every time you go to bed, the business needs to be improved just a tiny bit. If every day you finish the day thinking, I've moved the business forward in one of these 3 things just by a minuscule amount, if you apply a decade to that, then you're going to be fucking miles ahead of everyone. But the only way you're going to be miles ahead of everyone is if you've stuck to one thing for a decade. Because what you need to imagine is every time you make an inch of progress, an inch, you're making progress towards your goal. The second that you switch business models, the second you switch niches, the second you switch partners, or any, like, let's take the romantic thing. Let's say you're making inches of progress in your relationship, and you think, oh, the grass is going to be greener with this person, and so you leave this. The second you switch is the second you reset all of that progress back to 0. Now, yeah, you're going to carry some experience through, but not really. And so what happens every time you switch? You come back to 0. and then inch of progress, inch of progress, inch of progress, inch of progress. And then what happens is you work on it for 6 months, and you feel like you haven't made any progress because you've only been doing it for 6 months. You're not supposed to make any progress in 6 months. And then because you haven't made any progress, you go straight back to the beginning. And so what you have to do is give the business model and iteration enough time to produce an exponential curve. And it can take like a year or two for that to happen. You can work on a business, oh my God, believe it or not, right? You have to work on a business for like a year or two before you start making real money. Of course, like that's kind of how it works. Like it takes a real bit of time here. And the only difference, I'm telling you, my whiteboard's broken, it's like digging into my back here. The only difference between a guru and a normal person is their ability to do this rapidly. And every time you go to sleep, you need to shut your eyes, no matter how you feel, no matter how much emotional stress you're under, no matter how bad you feel or how sick you feel, go to bed every day with the business in one of these 3 areas being ever so slightly improved, just by a minuscule amount. Do that for 10 years, stick to the same thing so that you don't reset your progress. And then suddenly it's like, oh shit, I've actually got I'm a millionaire and I'm richer than like 99.999% of people that I know. What the hell is going on? And then that's literally that's where you end up. And the funny thing about this is really all you have to do. And then you end up in the position where you're now really fucking rich and you're still just a dude. Like, I can't stress this enough. Like, I'm just a person. Like, yes, I might have significantly more money and financial achievement and business achievement than the average person my age, but I'm still just a normal person. I still have like problems in my personal life. I still get food poisoning if I eat the wrong thing. I still have issues elsewhere in life, and I'm no different to you. I'm not this deified, ultimate, hyper-intelligent monk-like god. I just figured out how to discipline myself pretty well and stick to one thing for a decade and make constant minuscule iterations every single day to that thing whilst keeping a level head and not blowing everything up in the process. And after 10 years of that, it's not like I've made some miraculous, insane, massive jump forward in my life. I've just made tiny little steps every day. And now it seems like I've made some massive, huge jumps, but really it's just been little iterations over time. And don't get me wrong, a few things that you need to have are a severely unhealthy, constant ability to push yourself to psychological, biological, and emotional limits in pursuit of your objective. You can't get this done without the ability to burn yourself out and tolerate a significant sum of pain. Like, it really is hard, and it really is really difficult, and it really tests you. Like, you're gonna go through real hell to get this done. And be under no illusion, the variable thing is great and everything, but it sounds simple, and it is simple to do, but that doesn't mean it's easy. Like, it's really hard to pull yourself out of bed when you're exhausted, and all you wanna do is just curl up into a ball and just watch Netflix all day and just eat junk food, drag yourself to a desk and make videos or work on your product or run team meetings or do financial management or write contracts. There's 101 things that have to be done every day. And I've been through this recently where I'm working on a product at the moment and I'm nearing the sort of last 25% of that product build, and I've been doing it for a year. And I feel right now like I'm very much exhausted, I'm very burned out, I'm very sort of emotionally, mentally, physically. I can't really go to the gym, my appetite starts to go, I'm not sleeping properly from stress. But what you need to learn is that it's all worth it, and you need to have and develop, whether you like this or not, you need to develop a high threshold for exhaustion and stress. And you need to be able to show up for example, you guys watch my videos. You've given me the pleasure of your attention for nearly 40 minutes here. And I have to, even though I'm exhausted, and even though that exhaustion is frustrating, I still need to show up and make quality videos for you because you've been sticking around to watch them. And so just because I'm feeling a bit tired and a little bit stressed and emotional about how much work I've got to do doesn't mean that I can't be showing up. And so, again, this is kind of the point of sticking to it and never quitting. It's one thing to quit entirely or to switch entirely, but what really matters is never switching or quitting in the day. Because in the macro, I'm never going to switch or quit. I'm only ever going to upgrade my business model, if that makes sense. So go from like high ticket to like some sort of like more higher leverage business model in the same industry that's sort of related to my circle of competence, right? That's basically my plan. And that's not switching, that's just upgrading. It's like the goldfish in the bowl analogy. Like you can only grow so big in this internet marketing space before you need to go to something bigger, right? And I can't quit in the day. So there are days where I wake up and I'm not this monk, I'm not this robot. There are days, and I know all the gurus, by the way, on a first name basis, and we all struggle with this. We're not these hyper-disciplined gods that you think we are. We're people with limits. But the only difference is that we are able to push ourselves beyond our limits consistently and significantly to the point where we can dig in real deep. That's the difference. There's no like magical gene that we're born with here or crazy like hyper rare condition. To be fair, the only one will be hypomania, but that's a story for another day. That's people like Napoleon had hypomania. It's where you've got this relentless energy that you can't seem to, you just never burn out basically. But we don't need to worry about that. But yeah, I wanted to make this video because it feels important. I'm going to do a quick CTA. Forgive me. If you're a marketing agency and a coach or consultant and you need help getting more clients, then you can click on the link in the description to do that. I don't really care if you click it or not, but you might not even be one of those people. And even if you are, you might not care. You're just here to learn a little bit of information about how to make it. But yeah, that's the thing that separates us. It ain't anything special. It's actually quite sad. Like, when you think about it, it's like, really all it is the ability to stick to something, iterate on that thing over time, and put yourself through hell. Those are the three. I told you I'd give you 3 things. Those are the 3 things. Stick to it, not just in the long term, but also in the day, in the hour. Iterate and shuffle these variables over and over again, little small steps. And then the last one is just be willing to tolerate real pain. And it's quite sad, like it is sad, because everyone around you will like tell you to stop working and tell you need a day off and you need a break and on holiday you're working, and it's like you're just constantly working non-stop. And if that sounds like something you don't want to do, then you don't have to do it. You can go and get your 9 to 5 and crack on, and there's nothing wrong with that. But again, if you don't want to do the 9 to 5 thing, then it's like, well, you need to make a decision, mate, because you've got to pick your poison here. Pain is going to be in your life no matter what. It's just a question of whether you're in control of it or it controls you. It's kind of like a little perspective that I like is like, it's like you're going to be in pain for the rest of your life to do with work, right? And it's either going to be because you hate your work, because you're in a job that you hate, or it's going to be because you're in a job that requires so much of you that it's painful. It's like, would you rather the pain of being exhausted and stressed from building a business, or the pain of being exhausted and stressed by making someone else rich and hating your job? It's like the pain has to exist irrespective, so you might as well just make the decision to take control of it and get the most from it. It's like inevitable, like it's going to happen. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Rather somber message, but I hope it finds you well, and I'll see you in the next video. Subscribe.